And now, Gemini 3.5 Pro may no longer be the destination. So what is Google really building?
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive tech mystery that's essentially hiding in plain sight. We're going to unpack the story of Google's missing flagship AI model, Gemini 3.5 Pro, and figure out what its sudden disappearance tells us about the absolutely high-stakes AI ecosystem war going on right now. So is one of the biggest tech giants stumbling, or are they, quietly prepping a massive leap forward? Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's look at the timeline, because this is really where our story starts. Back in May at Google I/O, Google confidently announced Gemini 3.5 Pro, and they were aiming for a June release. But, June came and went. Then in July, reports of a delay started popping up. Now it's August, and the flagship model, it's still nowhere to be found. And look, in the hyper-fast world of artificial intelligence, a delay of a few months is literally an eternity. It immediately raises some major red flags.
Which forces us to ask the obvious question. Where exactly is Gemini 3.5 Pro? I mean, why is it that one of the most powerful, incredibly resource-rich tech companies on the planet can't seem to get this specific model across the finish line? Well, the evidence we're about to look at suggests Google might be facing some unexpected hurdles. Or, and this is actually way more intriguing, maybe they're already looking past this model entirely and aiming straight for Gemini 4. Section 1. Coding and competitor pressure. The shift from answering to doing. So, to understand what's happening, we have to look at a massive paradigm shift in the AI race right now. Modern AI, it's no longer just a cool party trick chatbot that generates a few neat lines of text or summarizes a PDF for you. That was the answering phase, but we have officially moved into the doing phase. Today, frontier AI has to operate as an agent. It needs to be able to actively build software, navigate complex environments, and execute autonomous workflows without human handholding. If a model can't do that today, it's pretty much obsolete out of the gate. Think about it like this. A modern coding model has to accomplish so much more than just writing a simple Python script. It has to deeply understand massive codebases, maintain its memory context over super long workflows, actively debug its own errors, modify multiple files all at once, and actually plan out complex implementations. It has to operate as a true independent agent. And reports suggest that if Gemini 3.5 Pro is being delayed, a huge part of the reason is that it's struggling with exactly these kinds of incredibly complex agentic tasks that are now basically mandatory to stay competitive. And the clock is ticking because every single week of delay is highly dangerous for Google. Their rivals definitely aren't standing still. OpenAI is relentlessly pushing out models that are hyper-focused on advanced reasoning, agents, and autonomous workflows. Meanwhile, Anthropic has rolled out Claude 3.5, which is heavily targeting enterprise work and absolute coding excellence. So the target Google is aiming at, it's moving, and it's moving fast. A model that looked amazing back in May might honestly look pretty underpowered by the time it actually hits the market. But here's where the mystery really deepens. Google hasn't stopped developing Gemini altogether. Actually, their smaller, highly efficient Gemini 3.5 Flash models and even some later iterations are still actively moving forward. This isolates the problem entirely. It tells us, hey, this isn't a company-wide freeze. The issue is hyper-specific to the flagship Pro release. They're balancing speed, intelligence, and cost perfectly well on the smaller scale, but that heavy-duty model, it's stuck. Section 2. Google's AI leadership shakeup. The plot twist inside DeepMind. Right as this flagship model stalls out, there is a massive restructuring happening at the very top of Google's AI division. Demis Hassabis, the legendary mastermind behind DeepMind, AlphaGo, AlphaFold, is stepping back from day-to-day operational leadership. He's handing those operational reins over to Kore Kavukoglu. Hassabis is instead shifting into a chairman and chief scientist role, completely focusing his energy on artificial general intelligence, long-term scientific progress, and his work with isomorphic labs. And to compound that shakeup, decades of accumulated world-class AI expertise just walked out of Google's doors. Legendary researchers, we're talking huge names like Jeff Dean, Oriol Vinyals, Kwok Lei, and Sanjay Gamawat have departed to form a new venture called Discovery Loop. Now, sure, tech companies always see turnover, but you really have to ask yourself, why are several major executive and talent changes happening at the exact same time Google is desperately trying to accelerate its Gemini roadmap? Section 3. The War for Ecosystems. Google's ultimate battlefield. To really get this, we need to zoom out because the true nature of this war goes way beyond building a chatbot. Google is facing an existential challenge. They have this enormous existing ecosystem: search, Android, YouTube, Workspace, Cloud. Their massive task is to safely and flawlessly inject an intelligence layer across billions of existing users. Now contrast that with OpenAI's strategy. OpenAI is entirely AI first. They get to build their entire ecosystem directly around the AI itself from day one without having to worry about breaking legacy systems that are used by literally half the planet. And this ecosystem dynamic brings us to what's known as the benchmark trap. It's this illusion that the AI race is won just by getting, say, a 92 on a leaderboard instead of a 90. But let's be real, everyday users don't care about leaderboard scores. They demand reliability, speed, precise tool use, and seamless integration. So there's a really strong counterargument here. Maybe Google isn't falling behind at all. What if they're intentionally holding Gemini 3.5 Pro back? They might be avoiding that benchmark trap to make absolutely sure that when it does finally integrate into Google Workspace or Android, it's rock solid. So it leaves us with this huge question. Is Google late because they're genuinely struggling to keep up with OpenAI and Anthropic? Or is this silence a heavily calculated strategy to protect their massive distribution advantage, basically refusing to ship until the model is absolutely bulletproof for real-world use?
Section 4. Skipping straight to Gemini 4? The biggest gamble in AI. This brings us to a bombshell report from August 11th, which suggested that Google might be putting 3.5 Pro on hold entirely to focus on Gemini 4. If Google is truly pivoting like this, it means they're totally abandoning incremental, step-by-step updates to attempt a massive leap forward. But a leap to Gemini 4? That represents a colossal strategic reset. It inherently requires immensely more compute power, rigorous testing, crazy complex safety evaluations, and entirely new infrastructure. Bigger leaps simply take a lot more time.
When you look at all the evidence we've covered in this explainer, we're basically left with three distinct, incredibly high-stakes paths forward for Google's strategy. Path 1, Gemini 3.5 Pro eventually launches and absolutely proves to be highly competitive. Path 2, it launches, but because of the long delay, it just fails to regain the frontier lead against models like Claude 3.5. And finally, the ultimate reset path. Google effectively skips ahead, treats the 3.5 Pro era as a wash, and throws everything they have into making Gemini 4 their true defining moment. Which builds into an even bigger question. What if Google is no longer trying to win the AI race one model at a time? What if they've realized that releasing a new model every few weeks just to chase benchmark scores is a massive distraction? Think about it. Perhaps Gemini 3.5 Pro isn't the ultimate objective at all. Maybe it's just a minor checkpoint on the way to creating an inescapable ecosystem where Google AI is simply the invisible infrastructure running your entire digital life.
But as we look back at our timeline, the reality of right now remains stark. June was missed. July brought delays. August brought silence. And the future? It remains a giant question mark hovering over Gemini 4. As the target keeps rapidly moving forward thanks to relentless updates from OpenAI, Anthropic, and a bunch of free open-weight models, Google's continued silence speaks absolute volumes. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to ponder. What is Google really building in the dark? Are they struggling to keep the pace? Or are they preparing a system so deeply integrated into our digital world that it renders the current chatbot wars completely irrelevant? Ultimately, in an AI race that moves at the speed of light, what a company chooses not to release can be just as revealing as what it does. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the horizon.